Thank you for that lovely introduction, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'm a wine aficionado, so it's always a pleasure to have an excuse to come here, and I'm pleased in the last several years that I've been driving up the road to see solar panels sprouting up just as prodigiously as the vines every year. So I wanted to congratulate you on your 6th Climate Protection Conference, and I know I speak for the Air Resources Board Chairman Mary Nichols and the entire board in applauding your Everybody Profits take on climate protection. We at the Air Resources Board understand that it takes a leap of faith and in some circles a heap of courage to mention prosperity in the same breath as climate protection these days. How can you plan for more prosperous and livable communities when it seems you're doing all that you can to keep present conditions from falling apart? We've just been clobbered by the worst financial storm here in California since the Great Depression, and I don't have to remind you that in many places unemployment in the state hovers at over 12%, and we're by no means out of the woods yet. And because of this, many people say we must hold off on reductions of greenhouse gas emissions, that our wounds need to heal before we move ahead on more environmental controls and with upfront costs. But of course, as you all know, we can't hold off. Climate change, as with time and tide, waits for no one. And if California, with its technological know-how and big corner on the auto market, doesn't lead the way, who will? Well, by the looks of your community action plan, Sonoma County will. Mary traveled to Copenhagen, and I know several weeks before she was planning her trip, she was so proud to tell me about the presentations that she and others working in collaboration with, I would suspect some of you here in the room were doing to demonstrate at COP15 the importance of local action. And so I just want to underscore what the previous speakers have said. We get it. We understand that climate change starts at the local level. Now, the state of California is called ambitious and pioneering in the news media for requiring greenhouse gas reductions to be 25% below 1990 levels by 2020. But Sonoma County and the cities within the adopted planning region plan to reach a target that's even more ambitious than ours, 25% in half that time. Now that's the kind of one-upmanship that the Air Resources Board welcomes. We say, bring it on. But seriously though, I can't overestimate the critical role of communities in implementing a law as far-reaching and transformative as AB 32. Yeah, Sonoma County and the citizens of Sebastopol, Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, to name a few, you are the guiding lights. You're showing Californians how to get where they want and need to be on energy efficiency, energy security, livability by the end of this decade and beyond. Now, the legislature crafted AB 32, and it's up to us at ARB to implement it. But it's not legislators or air pollution specialists or science advisors who are going to solve this problem. It's going to be the scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs who develop and bring new technologies to market that shrink the carbon footprint, and it's going to be our local elected officials and our local citizens who make this happen. So it's up to everyday residents. People like, and high school students who make decisions to install solar and upgrade the insulation of their homes and choose more efficient cars. And combing through the news clips, and I don't know where I am in this, on this slide presentation, but I'm going to talk about a couple of things that you probably have already heard about. But in preparing for this speech, we were just so amazed at the number of initiatives that you've all been working on here. Your Sonoma County's Energy Independence Program, As authorized under AB 811, we're pleased that the program is giving loans to businesses and homeowners, and this is the first new program of its kind. We very much are intrigued by the payback mechanisms. We don't really need to establish a big new bureaucracy or ratepayer structure to set this up. It's the payback on the loan, as you know, is applied to the property tax bill, and it's a proven program that works, and it looks like other counties in the state are following suit and making efforts to replicate it. So we're very pleased about that. Now, the AB 32 scoping plan is relying on such improvements in existing and new buildings to achieve greenhouse gas emissions reductions on the order of 26 million metric tons. So thank you, Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and Assemblyman Huffman, for helping us to begin to reach our AB 32 scoping plan goals. The scoping plan calls for another 21 million metric tons of emissions reductions through the development of renewable energy sources. And here again, we know that Sonoma County government and the local cities within are leading the way as well. Most notably, we heard last fall, and I don't know what the status of it is, I confess, but we were very pleased to hear about the installation and the groundbreaking ceremonies on your $1.4 million megawatt direct fuel cell to power program, and we understand that the program is expected to save $40 to $50 million on energy costs over its 30-year lifetime. That's in Santa Rosa, is that correct? Or? Okay, it's County Sonoma. All right, okay. And so I'm not going to go into the details of the plan because I'm sure there are any number of people here that can do that more than that we can. But it sounds like the county is expected to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases by more than 6,000 tons annually. And again, that's another vivid illustration of how you are helping us reach the AB 32 goals. Now, I saw from your earlier presentation that transportation is clearly our Achilles heel. Statewide, it accounts for 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions, and it looks like that's also going to be a sticking point here in helping you to reach your goals. We were pleased to learn about Sonoma County Transit Authority being instrumental in the Bay Area-wide effort to unite Northern California transportation agencies under one plan to improve local goods movement. There's been a lot of attention to the goods movement issue down south with the ports, but I don't think we hear enough good things about the goods movement issue here in the northern part of the Bay region. So we understand that about $825 million could be coming in to help improve local infrastructure. And that kind of transportation planning money will go a long way toward achieving the climate-friendly and coordinated urban development that's called for under AB 375, the Sustainable Community Strategy and Climate Act. The AB, sorry to throw all these acronyms at you, but you're probably just as familiar with these. The AB 32 Climate Scoping Plan is actually counting on Senate Bill 375 to achieve emissions reductions from passenger vehicles by way of smarter and more compact local development. Now, we at the Air Board set the targets for AB 375 for each of the metropolitan planning regions, or MPOs, but most importantly, we are not the implementers. The law clearly leaves it to local government to decide how best to achieve their targets. And we're presently in the target setting phase of that. The targets are due June 30th to the board, and we'll be considering some final adoption around September 30th. And to help, I know that one of the topics today was local financing, so I'll just mention, I don't know where these slides are in the presentation, but it should be somewhere around the Strategic Growth Council. I just wanted to let you know that they will be... Where is it? Oh, God, awesome. Okay, I'm actually in the right place. Yeah, who said the science advisor had a high IQ? Okay. Yeah. The State Strategic Growth Council will be supporting communities to the tune of $90 million in Proposition 84 funding, with grants ranging from $100,000 to $1 million each, and those grants are available to help fund your climate change plan implementation. And if you haven't looked for the announcement of the requests for proposals, they're up at the website featured here on this slide. And I'll make these slides available to you after the presentation if you don't have that already. So far I've covered programs and some potential funding sources that feel close to home, efforts to create more livable communities through AB 375, as well as more energy efficient buildings. And I just wanted to close by bringing you up to date on the Air Board's key climate efforts that also can help to drive emissions reductions and economic development in local communities. Presently, the Air Board has approved 14 of the 30 measures identified in the AB 32 scoping plan, which when fully implemented would bring us about halfway to our 2020 goal for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Oops. In addition to reducing vehicle miles traveled and encouraging more energy efficient homes and offices, the Air Resources Board has 3 key measures aimed at creating cleaner cars, cleaner fuels, and using market-proven mechanisms called cap and trade to put a price signal on carbon emissions from very large sources like refineries. In terms of the Clean Car Law, you've probably heard of this. It was the first iteration of it was sponsored earlier this decade by former Assembly member now and present Senator Fran Pavley. That law sets limits on greenhouse gas emissions from automobile tailpipes, but leaves it entirely to the auto industry to figure out how to best meet them. And we expect this law to reduce emissions from new passenger vehicles sold in California by as much as 22% in 2012 and about 30% in 2016. And already we're noticing Pavley driving cleaner cars. We're very excited at the Air Resources Board about Sonoma's partnership with Nissan to purchase 1,000 electric vehicles. This is one more example of local government leading by setting a sterling example. Finally, I just want to say a word about our program to also promote cleaner fuels. We can ratchet down greenhouse gas emissions by building cleaner cars, but that won't get us all the way to our 2020 goals. We also have what's known as the Low Carbon Fuel Standard, and the Air Board adopted that program under the AB 32 scoping plan, and that requires suppliers of fuel sold in California to reduce by 10% the average carbon life cycle intensity of fuels by 2020. Now, it may not sound like much, but a 10% reduction would result in a 20% drop in California's oil consumption. Now, the good news for local communities is we recently released an updated economic analysis of our scoping plan, and it showed that we can reach our 2020 goals in an economic and cost-effective manner. But it also showed that the low carbon fuel standard combined with the Pavley measures can help save Californians $4 billion in fuel costs between now and 2020. And they can, instead of spending that money at the pump, they can redirect that money, most likely our modeling shows, back into local communities buying goods and services that otherwise would have gone to energy bills.